So hello everyone. Again, was a good time that I did last time that I spoke about climate change because we just had an event where they modified the climate, not the client, the climate. And so we have the map here by NASA where it shows exactly what happened is that there was a cooling of the temperature that went down up to Texas, and it was minus 20 degrees Celsius in Dallas, which is usually 20 or 30 degrees over zero in Dallas in this time of the year. And so, yeah, it's 40, 50 degrees in the summer in Houston. And yeah, so that's very hot usually. But now we have an event where there was some geoengineering done, I believe. It's my opinion. And of course, the media won't tell you that. And yeah, and so that's what happened. So we're going to have a look at a couple of articles, and we're going to do a return on the books that we did on climate change. My last presentation on climate change. And so here it says that there's million without power in Texas, right? Here it says that Texas remain in the dark, right? So I believe it's a parallel with what Joe Biden said, that we're gonna have a dark winter. I believe it has to do with that. I believe it's that. Yeah, and same thing. They had a dark Vatican. They had some cities that went down during the past few weeks, months, and I believe it's going to happen more and more. And there they use the climate. And here they told us that 150 million Americans were impacted by the storm. 25 states, 4.3 million people without power in Texas. It's a lot of people. Of course, we feel for those guys. And we understand that down there the houses are not insulated, and so the water tubes, they exploded, and it creates a lot of of problems in the houses, and a lot of in the highways. Those guys don't have winter tires, so don't have anything to get rid of the snow. They don't have snow blowers and so forth, and so. Yeah, it creates a lot of problems, but the main problem it creates is with the food, because since some part of the Midwest there, they're planting in February, and many regions like here they grow cotton and all that stuff, and all those commodities, those grain commodities, they will go up. And that's the reason they create a crisis to justify it. So they create the crisis and they give us the solution, right? That's the Hegelian dialectic. But here what's happening is that they destroy the food, and they give it as a reason for the increase in prices of the food. And we're gonna see it a little later on. But first, let's have a return on my last presentation. So in this book, 2000 toward the year 2018, that was written in 1968. They've asked several scientific of the 60s to ask them what's their vision and what's going to be like in 50 years. And they've asked many experts, and one of them in chapter 5 was Thomas Malone, who was an expert in his days in climate engineering. He says that in 1966, the long-range program of weather control and climate modification can have direct bearing between nations. Measures in Arctic may control the weather in temperate region, and one quarter around the globe. So it's exactly what's happening right now. Local intervention can have consequences hundreds of miles downstream, exactly what's happening right now. So we see here the Secretary of State. You can have a look at my last presentation here. It's important to understand here that this senator in charge of commerce understood the impact of weather on commerce, and going to have a look at that later on as well. They say it's to promote peace, but in reality, I believe it's a twisting of arm that we had from the United States during the past 60 years. And and so here he says in 68, he says the use of super cool water droplets can affect vertical distribution of sensible energy and can alter the nature of the great global wind system. So let's have a look again on the map. We have a distribution of vertical energy, and usually we have here, it's the North Pole approximately here. So we have the winter winds that goes like that usually. And during the spring, this polar vortex, it goes down and dissipates and goes in the south when it's there, winter there. And here we have hot air, basically warm air. And and so they are able to influence the wind. They say a quarter around the globe, and so it's exactly that. And they say that controlling the Arctic can control, the tropical zone. Exactly what happened. And I remind you, it didn't happen in the Atlantic. It didn't happen in the Pacific. It happened exactly in the growing zone, one of the main growing zone in the world, in the Midwest United States. And so let's continue here. It's either an incredible, coincidence, or it's a conspiracy. And you know my opinion on that. I believe it's a conspiracy. So this book here, written in 2013 by David Keith. David Keith, a professor at Harvard in both applied science and public policy. Here we have a little hidden hand signal of the Freemason, of course, funded by Bill Gates. So yeah, starting in 2020, the goal is to cut in half the rate of global warming possible of combined with serious effort to cut emission. This is not a prediction or a plan. Yeah, I'm sure that. Implementing the ideal global democracy. So we had the global democracy with Joe Biden, right? He was elected in 2020. And all the news in the world were talking about how it was a great democracy because democracy prevailed because Joe Biden was elected. The democracy was never the system in the United States. It was a republic, so it's a Republican system. A democracy is the ruling of the majority over the minority. A republic is the protection of the rights of all people, including the minorities and the majorities. So it's vastly different. And democracy leads to socialism, which leads to communism. And so, yeah, geoengineering could drive extraordinary rapid climate change, impairing global food supply. So that's not me who says it. That's David Keith in his book. Should have put the page there, but I didn't. So it's exactly what happened, and it's exactly what they're after. Eh? It's important for you to understand that. We're gonna have a look at that just after. Here he's talking about how the monsoon of Asia could be controlled by the climate geoengineering. And so they can do the same. If they can do it for the monsoon, they can, of course, do it here. They can do it in North America, and they can do it everywhere. And so let's switch here. Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Yeah, so that's what they're doing. They're spraying sulfuric acid in the stratosphere. It is very bad for our health. And in chapter 5 of his book, David Keith said there's a chapter there. It says ends and means. So it's similar to the ends justified the means of the Jesuit order. So it's one of the maxims of the Jesuit order. So he says here, I would like to see much more stringent environmental laws. It will require a new social movement. I believe that the social movement is the Great Reset. But before it happens, I want to come back to Ellen White here. In the Great Controversies, he says, he sweeps away the ripening harvest and famine and distress follow. I believe this sentence was written for our days, and it's happening right now. And this is it, the growing zone here, Canada too, but Canada doesn't culture anything during the winter. Maybe here in the Okanagan Valley here in BC, but not much in Alberta and Saskatchewan. They have a real winter there, but they don't have a winter here. They grow different, kind of grain commodities and can grow during our winter, which is basically very mild there in the South United States, and they're destroying the harvest, the ripening. How does she says that? He sweeps away the ripening harvest. I believe is exactly what's happening right now. And why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that for basically, I'm going to show you a little information about how the world economics works. So the world economics, how it works is that the US dollar is basically used to be the US dollar was 80% of the commerce done in the world, but now it's 25% of the commerce in the world that is done with the United States. And of course, because of the various free trade agreements, we had a transfer production from the U.S. to Asia and China. And U.S. basically created the powerful China that we have today. It's the United States that's created it. It's created it by, as I said, by both the free trade agreements that were done here and the raising of the U.S. dollar to make sure that it was competitive to move to Asia. And after the dollar did different thing, but the point here is that the industrial capacity of the U.S. was switched to China here. It was mainly switched as well after the Second World War, a lot to Japan. And so the yen has a very important role to play in this global economic picture. But what's going to happen here, we see the start of the pandemic here, and the US dollar goes down since then. I believe the US dollar is going to continue to go down. So we got a Canadian dollar here. The Canadian dollar, when it goes down on this chart, because the US dollar Canadian and not Canadian US, when this chart goes down, means the Canadian dollar goes up. And the US dollar loses its value. And so I believe it's going to continue. And I believe it's going to lead to the ruin of United States because, when the U.S. dollar goes down, what happens is that the commodity goes up. The commodity complex goes up. And let's have a look at corn here. Corn, the start of the crisis was $11 per unit. Now it's $18. So a 50% increase. Don't have much grain commodities here. We got wheat future here. Wheat at the start of the crisis we had, it did go up, but not that much, for $500, $550, and now it's going on $700. So yes, it's going up, but not that much. But lumber, for example, went up crazy, threefolds. Well, lumber at the start of the crisis, it was $300. Now it's $900, nearly $1,000. And the trees are still growing in the woods. Don't worry about that. The trees are growing, and the industrial capacity of Canada is always there to meet the demand of wood in the United States. Don't worry about that. But for some reason, we had a tripling of the lumber price, which doesn't have any sense. Same thing in silver, precious metals, right? It was 15, it's now doubling. Same thing for gold, but not as much. Gold. So you see the thing here. I'm trying just to teach you how the U.S. dollar has an inverse correlation with the commodities. And so we have here the oil. U.S. oil went to zero on. I remember there in March. It actually went intraday. It went at minus 40, which doesn't make any sense. But since then, say it went to 20. Since then, it tripled. And it's just because the U.S. dollar goes down. Same thing with nat gas. We had the same thing with natural gas. It was 150. It doubled. And we have the global commodity complex here, which is similar to the what's in the Chicago Exchange. So it was 15, now it's going on 20. I believe it's going to go up. It's going to take that peak, I believe. It's not financial advice. It's only, showing you the correlations between U.S. dollar and the commodities. Corn, we've seen it. So it's a company, Canadian company here for uranium. So uranium went up more than twice. So it's all linked with the price of the US dollar. And I think it's linked with the commodities as well. Whoops. We've seen natural gas. Same thing for rare earth here. Here March, right? It was 30 and now it tripled. So it's all the US dollar. US dollar decides the price of commodities. And I believe that the prophetic scenario says that, it's the United States is going to be ruined. So imagine if the US dollar goes down here. What's going to happen is that, the Japanese yen, and let's take the Canadian dollar, because it's more down to earth to me at least, right? 60% of the products made in Canada are exported to United States. So, a part of some period here, we always have a Canadian dollar that was at discount with the US dollar, which means that it was logic for American production to be switched to Canada, right? Because they had a rebate of 30-40% only because of the foreign exchange. Not because of anything else, right? Just because of a foreign exchange. And so we had a rally there. And so the Canadian dollar was going very well. The economy in Canada was going very well because we export 60% of our things to the United States. And so if a producer of wheat, for example, right? It's a grain commodity. It's a real commodity. Producer of wheat has the choice, because of Canadian dollar is at par, to buy Canadian or U.S. wheat. They're going to probably take, U.S. wheat because it's going to be the same price. And so what happens is that all of a sudden, the Canadian economy is in a deep recession until the problem of the currency exchange is fixed. And so I believe that this drawdown is the twisting of arms that the United States is going to be doing to implement the Sunday Law. Because it says, Ellen White says that the Sunday Law starts with the ruin of the United States. Now the United States pretty much ruined. It can continue. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I believe it's going to continue until there are famines, really, because there's no famine yet. But when there's going to be famine, I believe the US dollar is going to crash, and all of the US pairs are going to be in trouble, you see? So that's the euro. The euro is going to go up like that, and every single producer that was exporting to the United States is going to go bankrupt because the Americans are going to produce their own goods. And so it's the same thing around the world. There's a lot of correlation that's interesting to be made here, but let's stick with the Canadian one. And so I believe it's a real possibility because they will devalue. Everybody says it. The Treasury, the Secretary of Treasury Yellen says she's going to devalue. The Biden says it's going to be a dark winter. He says that he wants to put the economy and the new economy and so forth. The new economy will be not that different from what it is right now. What they are telling us in the World Economic Forum is that they want to electrify everything. It's possible that it happens, but it's also possible it doesn't happen, and that what's gonna happen is a big devaluing of the US dollar, which is gonna lead the world into problem. A worldwide recession is gonna be created by the weakness of the US dollar. And which is basically good for the United States. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. The President Trump, his economic policy for American was good. I believe he was a Jesuit, but I believe what he was saying was something normal. And we see right now with the demonification of everyone that was pro-Trump, basically was saying, we want our national sovereignty, or we want our national production, economic production to be produced in the United States and so forth. That was normal for a country to say that. That's abnormal for a country to have businessmen that move their production from the United States to Asia. That's treason. And so I believe this is going to play a big role because everything for the past, since the Second World War, what FDR has implemented in the world is basically a massive devaluing of currency over time. And the final movement is probably something similar to this, maybe faster than this. And it's not going to be a straight line. But what I'm saying is that your groceries are going to multiply. And so this is why they want to implement a minimum wage and a basic income, because the inflation is coming and they know it, and they create it. They create it because they want their agenda to succeed. They want the famines to come and to put people on their knees. And so this storm in Texas was nothing more than the implementation of part of the plan that they have for us in the New World Order. And so based on that, we'll leave it at that, and I'll tell you, to read everything I say and verify it. Read your Bible, have a look at it, and see for yourself what's the end times picture, if it fits what you see around you today. And God bless you, and see you next time. Thanks.